Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I know it's Tuesday, and typically I do my videos on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but no way I was not going to get on here and check in with you all today after that amazing interview between Kamala Harris and Rachel Maddow last night. I was waiting, pacing the floor literally about 15 minutes before it came on. And wow, it did not disappoint. Gonna go to spirit about some things on that, you all. I think Kamala Harris is going to run again in 2028. I know there are still many of us who are, looking at what really happened in the 2024 election, whether there will be some sort of turnover from that, some things coming out, but we've been hanging on to that thread now for the better part of this whole year, or even since the election, right? So I'm not discounting that, but I'm also training my focus forward and go to spirit on that, because there was some hints that I think Kamala gave last night around her real intentions, and certainly possibilities prompting her for another run. Going to get into that in a second. Couple of quick announcements before I get to the reading, you all. And by the way, so glad you're here. Appreciate your time, your energy, your support. This is a community, and I love your comments. I love the way you speak to one another. We do it respectfully, even when, our tempers get up, or our differences of opinion. I love the way that you all interact with each other on the channel, and that's all that I ask is different perspectives are welcomed, but that we be respectful of one another always. Okay. Uh, Quick announcement. Want to make sure that you all remember I am doing a workshop with Susan Lynn this Saturday, 9/27, another portal day. All right, 9/27 equals a 9. So it's going to be another powerful day. So glad that Susan and I chose that date. Didn't realize that when we did it. But we are doing a workshop on, it's called Embodying the Phoenix, right? Rebirth after loss or change. That is so powerfully timely right now when we think about all of the sense of loss that many of us are undergoing in terms of how our society functions, how our lives have been functioning. Real loss that many people are dealing with right now in the wake of losing jobs. Just so many areas of loss, in addition to many ways that we do experience loss in divorce, loss of loved ones, pets, etc. So rebirth, thinking about the ways that and the spiritual lessons that we can learn around how to reset, how all of these eclipses that we've been going through right now, and as we go into the autumn season, the ways that naturally there are rhythms in the cosmos, there are rhythms around us that encourage us to consider rebirth, to consider after loss or change. And man, don't even get us started on the changes, right? Many changes we thought we saw coming, many changes we did not see coming, all of this capitulation in the world around us, things just changing. So Susan and I are going to bring you some really hopefully helpful content and teachings on how we both have learned to rebirth and rise. I realized that the image of the phoenix, that fiery image, can be like, ooh, do I really want to go to ashes and then get rebirth? But one way or another, I think that's what life does with us, right? That's what happens on our soul journey and our soul path. Is one way, in many ways, we do rise from the ashes. We do take losses and setbacks and changes and figure out, how do we pivot? How do we reset? How do we stay determined and focused and joyful, even in our continuation of our life journey on this planet, right? Hope you can make it. I'll put a link to how to register in the description box below, or you can just go to susanlynnmedium.com. All right, all together, one word, susanlynnmedium.com, and register for the workshop on Saturday. It'll be 5 p.m. Eastern, so 2 p.m. Pacific. Do your times. $33. Like, we tried to be conscious of trying to include, and making it as inclusive as possible. So would love to have you there. All right. Also, second announcement, real quick. Thank you so much. Many of you, I talked about, I'm waiting. I'm going to go get my book today. 107 Days. It's officially released today. Um, But I asked in my last video how many of you would be interested perhaps in doing a book club, and the response was overwhelming. So I am going to do a book club. I have decided, however, you all, things are really getting, things are getting interesting on some of these platforms. So I decided, I went to my guides and, said, how should I do it? I'm going to do it privately on Zoom. All right. I'm going to host it privately on Zoom. I'm not going to do a YouTube live, at least not in this context. I am going to start doing more YouTube lives. I'm looking for moderators, by the way. So, especially among my membership, if you'd be willing, that's one reason why I haven't been doing lives is you got to be able to, watch out for people who get on and maybe say something inappropriate. You all know how that goes. And I don't want to be on a live alone and get distracted by that, trying to block people or whatever. I need some moderators. So if you'd be interested in doing that with me, I'd really appreciate it. Drop me an email, perhaps touchedbytarot@gmail.com. And we're going to start getting some live shows coming up on YouTube. That said, I am going to do the book club privately via Zoom. So if you're interested in the book club, I'm going to do it on Saturday, October 4th, so a week from this coming Saturday, because this Saturday is my workshop with Susan Lynn on the Phoenix. Next Saturday, October 4th, 5 p.m. Eastern, and I will send out the Zoom link to those who are interested. Please email me if you're interested at touchedbytarot@gmail.com. I'm not going to charge a set fee because it's not technically a workshop. It will be by donation and whatever you feel led to do. And I'll give you the information for how to make that donation later. Okay, so let's get that book club going. And now let's get into this reading. All right. I think Kamala's going to run. I know she said, we knew Rachel was going to put that question to her. And she said what could be expected, right? Not thinking about it right now. And, it's off in the distance. Her focus is on her book, blah, blah, blah. However, here's some hints that I got from Spirit. And I want to share with you all and go to the cards that I think she left with us. All right. And talk about, Spirit said, my guides were being playful this morning. They were like, I woke up and it was like, well, I'm still here, no rapture, right? I don't know what that says. And if you're seeing this video, apparently none of us got raptured today. That's been a really interesting situation. But they also said, rapture in terms of joy. Right? Rapture is ultimately that sense of ecstatic joy. And that is something that even last night Kamala said. We remember the joy of her campaign. That joy was sort of a theme in the campaign, and how much joy we saw among people and shared, among ourselves in watching and going through that 107 days with her. But she even said at one point, she said, dare I say joy, right? Because there was so much sort of backlash to that. And we are seeing the complete opposite of that with this regime that is just spewing so much, hatred and division and absolutely what Stephen Miller did at that memorial on Sunday, what he said just doesn't even bear repeating. But joy. So my spirit guides were like, okay, well, hang on to that rapture in terms of what Kamala Harris brings, in terms of being that lotus, in terms of rising from the mud, again, tying it to this Phoenix workshop and the idea that we are in this position of, hitting that lowest low and then figuring out where we go and how we rise from that. And Kamala put that on full display last night. All right, a couple of takeaways. And then I'm going to go and actually just dig in on her. One, I'd be interested to hear whether this struck you as well. One was the Pete Buttigieg question came up. We knew that it would and it should have. And she said, remarkably, I may have made a mistake. I may have gotten that wrong, right? Talk about the bearing the full weight of leadership and really representing what a true leader is willing to do and should do in terms of saying, I'm not perfect. I didn't, she talks about the fact that she had just this really tiny window to get things in motion, and that a lot of it for her was just operating on instinct because she didn't have the infrastructure in place to really, launch her campaign. So much of it. I mean, I think collectively our admiration for her as a politician, in addition to just being an incredible human being, just went way up, because we realized from what she was saying with Rachel Maddow last night, so much of what Kamala Harris had to do, it's certainly in the first couple of weeks after Joe Biden decided to step down, it was all instinct on her part. Part of that was her decision in a running mate, and she says with Pete Buttigieg, I may have gotten it wrong. And that wasn't taking anything away from Tim Walz, coach. Coach stepped in and did his doggone thing. But I think that said something about, again, looking at, and we're gonna go to the cards, looking at her future, or whether she will, and I don't know whether that means she would tap Pete Buttigieg on a second go round, but just the fact that she put that out there and was really clear about, hey, I'm human, and at that time I was making judgment calls that in that instance may not have been the right call to make. Loved it. Would love to hear what you thought about that as well. The second one, though, bigger even in terms of, again, everything, will she run again? The issue of DJT, calling that today, of course, came up. But did you notice how she said essentially what we're facing is so much bigger than him? And rather than, yeah, he lied, right? Came straight out and said he lied. And she did highlight that in very powerful ways. But she also talked about, listen, what has happened with him was in motion long before the 2024 election, or even the 2016 election, with regard to this MAGA movement, with regard to the Heritage Foundation, with the Federalist Society, and now we have entities like Turning Point. We have what has become the MAGA movement, right? And even its more extreme factions. So she talked about the fact that this is a larger issue than just DJT. And what she did brilliantly, I thought, was she singled out corporations in talking about certainly what has happened with Jimmy Kimmel. And I'm going to close out the reading with a look at him. But what has happened with Jimmy Kimmel, what happened with Disney, they had to back down. And she talked about the corporations bending the knee and how that they have to stand up. This will not do, and they will have to stand up. Remembering as well that to launch a 2028 campaign, those corporate donors are going to have to line up and get behind her. And she recognizes that. So she singled them out. That's what I got from my guidance, is she was being very smart and very deliberate in singling out. Let's not put all the focus on DJT and this regime that he's built around him. But let's, looking forward, let's hone in on the responsibility of these corporations that are going to have to get a grip, and the knowing that in the wake of what happened, that $4 billion loss by Disney, and then those 400 celebrities and actors that said, hey, we won't work with you anymore. Ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. Suddenly Kimmel is now coming back on the air. So I think that was a tell. I think that was a hint that she gave, because again, to mount a really credible and powerful campaign, we know, unfortunately, but that's how the system runs. You got to have money. You got to have big, big, big money. And so she was sort of throwing down the gauntlet, I think, in saying to corporations, hey, you all, you will have to wake up. You're going to have to resist this if you want free enterprise, if you want prosperity, if you want the people who keep you in business, who subscribe to your services, who buy your goods and products, if you want them, you're going to have to get on board with that. The third thing she said was around when Rachel Maddow brought up the issue of Zohran Mamdani in New York, right? And the issue of age. Those were two very, Rachel did her thing. We knew she would, though. Rachel never disappoints. All right, you all. So with Mamdani, she never said his name. Unless I blinked, she never said his name, Kamala. She never said his name outright. She said, we should get behind, he's the Democratic candidate, and we should get behind that candidate and support him, right? And then she shifted the focus on these other mayor races, I think in New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama, to say we have other rising stars in the party, right? Speaking as a leader, we have other rising stars within the party. And so she didn't go into Mamdani too far, and it wasn't a full throttled endorsement by any means, right? The age piece, she said, essentially, I don't think that we should disqualify people simply based on age, but rather based on their mentality, their, how with it they are, how adaptable they are, how in tune they are really with the American public at large, etc. Right? So I think she was bridging as only 60, but still 60, right? Not certainly in that Mamdani, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and even Pete Buttigieg crew, right? But she was saying, she was giving an aura or a message like she can be a perfect bridge because she is that person who is very youthful. We saw those dances. We saw her getting down to hip hop. We saw her connection with youth culture, right? So she is that sort of bridge, and I think that's why she answered that question with Rachel Maddow that way, to say, let's not just get too caught up in the age issue, because there is some relevance there, provided that candidate has that sort of perspective and that sort of connection with across the board with all people. The other piece that I got though around Mamdani, you all, is that, remember, going back to the corporate interests, a lot of what is causing the friction, although he's going to win, a lot of what is causing friction, and I think is going to be a challenge for Mamdani as mayor of New York, is that corporate contingent. That is one reason why many of them were resistant to get behind him. Many of them still are corporate interests, the Wall Street types, etc., because they're not sure with his, quote unquote, democratic socialist agenda, the extent to which it harms them or doesn't give them leeway to continue to grow. Kamala Harris, coming out of California big money politics, is extremely aware of that. And I think, going again, whether these were hints that she will run in 2028, I think she was being very, very careful about how she worded her endorsement for Mamdani, and how she shifted the focus so that all things went back to not alienating the very interests, those corporate entities that, please wake up, please God, wake up and be ready to do the right thing in the next presidential race. All right. That said, now I'm ready. Thank you for your patience. Now I'm ready to go to some cards. I am reading just because it was so lovely to see her. Didn't have a Lotus deck. If I did a tarot deck, I would have used that today, but I'm going to use the Rosebud Tarot today. Spirit, center myself, because I'm all hyped up. I'm still hyped up from last night, y'all. I'm just telling the truth. I am hyped up. Let me cleanse the deck, cleanse myself, and center, because I want to see the truth. Or at least the truth. We know these timelines change. And I know there are a lot of people who feel like, hey, 2028 is a long time away, a long time from now. But the way the timelines are speeding up, by 2026, that presidential race is going to be in effect. After those midterms, it's going to be full on. It's going to be full on. All right, Spirit. Kamala Harris. Please show me her intentions. Will she run in 2028? What is her future? The future of Kamala Harris politically. Future of Kamala Harris politically. Will she run again in 2028? Will we see her run? Will she mount another campaign for president? At the bottom of the deck, we have the Knight of Cups. She wants to. This book for her was, and Spirit has said that before when we found out she was doing a book. This book for her was very, very cathartic. She has, as we know, she's got this 14, I think it's 14 city tour coming up. And so, again, her in front of what no doubt is going to be sellout audiences. Her continued connection with people is going to fuel her. It's going to be a very emotional book tour for her, but she will channel those emotions into forward movement. We have The Hermit, lessons learned, and this is the work that she's willing to put in to mount another campaign. And the thing with the Hermit is, remember, Virgo energy, very, very detail oriented, very, very analytical, which she has gained. Spirit is saying she has gained so much knowledge that she did not have and was not properly given when she was thrust into that last race. We have the Six of Wands. They call it fire. The Six of Wands is a card of ultimate victory, but it's the work that you have to put in. It's the elbow grease that you have to put in order to get that victory. And I think she, coming with that Hermit that we just saw, or the Seeker, I think she feels she's gotten that elbow grease. She's gotten so much more experience under her belt to really launch and talk about 107 days as the shortest campaign. This time around, I feel like what Spirit is saying, Two of Cups. That's the decision between she and Doug, her husband, Doug Emhoff. His opinion is going to, his backing and opinion is going to matter tremendously. She feels like she could not do it without him. And she values, because he went through that with her, in like 1,000 different ways. He went through that with her. And he understands. Nine of Cups. She wants it, you all. Nine of what? She wants it. She does not want her political career to go out on that note. And she's laying the groundwork. And there's the Chariot. There we go. Getting ready. Moving forward. Overcoming obstacles. Chariot does not let obstacles get in its way. Spirit, was that message last night around corporate, was it tied to her recognition that she'll need the backing? She'll need that financial backing to mount a really substantial, viable campaign. Alchemy, temperance. Yes. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you so much. Yes. But she also realizes this is a card of patience and moderation. Very often you'll hear those terms used with temperance or alchemy. She realizes that she's gonna work toward a campaign that bridges many of the gaps that we just talked about a moment ago. Remember, we were talking about the age issue, the up and coming Jasmine Crockett's and AOC's of the world, right? The Pete Buttigieg's of the world. She recognizes that she's got to build and strengthen those bridges or those bonds as well in order to and that's the way she wants to do it. It wouldn't prevent her. Thank you, Spirit, for the correction. It wouldn't prevent her from launching a campaign in 2028, but she wants to do it the right way. She wants to make sure that she's got the full buy-in of all of the major players behind her. And we have the King of Wands. Yes. That's the energy that will back her up. And I also feel like that's somebody who will come out in her favor or in like ready to throw it all in. Now, that said, thank you, Spirit. They just pinged me around Gavin Newsom. Without question, I'm going to pick up the cards and shuffle again. Without question, Gavin Newsom has been lining himself up for a run. He was a little salty. I was talking about this the other day with a friend. He was a little salty around her campaign. The fact that, remember, Pelosi was pushing for a primary. Who had time to do all of that, right? It just came down to, hey, next in line, Kamala. Once Joe Biden stepped down, there wasn't time for a primary. There simply wasn't. And I think Gavin Newsom was a little salty behind that, because he thought if there had been a primary, he might have had a shot. She was asked a question around the fact that of the people that Kamala Harris reached out to when it was go time for her, that Gavin said, well, I'm hiking, I'll get back to you. And he never did. When Rachel Maddow brought up that question, she sort of said, we're good. I've been knowing him forever. He just has a sense of humor. That's how she left it. Spirit, is there... I got it. I'm still going to pull cards, but Spirit just spoke. Okay, here's the thing. She has more of a national presence and a proven ability. She has the experience in the White House. So if you're comparing apples and oranges between Newsom and Kamala Harris, that's just what it is. It's apples and oranges is what Spirit is saying. Now, would Gavin Newsom work in her cabinet? Is that something that they may discuss? Because they're going to have that discussion. Strength. Thank you, Spirit. Yes, that's it. Let's work together. And that's why she was stressing that friendship between them. And she didn't go all in on the fact that it sounds like he kind of dissed her because he was salty. And there's the lovers. Let's work together. Strength and the lovers just came, you all. So Newsom, while Newsom has had a lot of support and backing and hand clapping from me, and I'm sure many of you, around his response to the gerrymandered maps, around the fact that they did get it on the ballot in California, and it's going to pass. Spirit has said it's going to pass. So they're going to get those extra seats. And he did get a lot of national and international attention around that. But actual governance, actual understanding, and being in the rooms, in the Oval, etc., Gavin doesn't have that, and Kamala Harris does. And I just got the four swords, or the four of air. So the issue is going to be getting some clarity between them. There are going to be a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but there are going to be some conversations had between Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Like, listen, I'm not doing this to be against you. Let's work together. Maybe, and I'm not feeling it. There's no way it would be a vice presidential situation. You got two people out of California. That won't happen. But maybe it's Attorney General. Maybe it's Secretary of State. Maybe it's some other sort of, powerful cabinet position that she could bring him in. And I just got the Emperor to confirm that. They call it the Elder in this deck, because she recognizes what he's done. And she said that point blank period on with Rachel Maddow last night. Fight fire with fire, right? She gave him his props. She gave Gavin Newsom his props. So I think she's going to try to figure out a way to bring him along. But again, what I'm getting is, if you're just looking at pure potential, know-how, having launched a presidential campaign under those constraints, and then having the time to build that momentum and launch another viable one, like, you can't compare what she could do to what Gavin Newsom could do. All right. Final thing, I want to wrap up today's reading, and I'll keep it short on this part. Because I'm feeling like there's still some question marks around what really happened with this, with ABC and Disney pulling Kimmel's show. We know that Kimmel remained silent. Like, he did not come out and react publicly anyway. Everyone else did. We all did. Disney felt that $4 billion pull, right? They felt that thing in 3 days? Global, not just here in America, but globally, people said, oh, hold up, wait a minute. And we know that, Sinclair and Nexstar, the owners of many local ABC affiliates, have said they're still not going to put the show back on the air. That said, are we going to see a difference in Kimmel's programming? Is it going to be more tame, or is he ready to work it and dare them to do something about it now that they know what it would cost them, right? Now that the execs know what it would cost them. Is he going to be able to continue his show in the way that he wants it? Will we still hear and see Jimmy Kimmel in the way that we know he prefers and he is known for being? Or will he be more tame? What can we expect? Bottom of the deck is the Seven of Swords. I knew it. There's still something around that whole setup, you all, that we're not being told. And I think on some level, this can be a card for those of you not familiar with tarot. This can be a card of deceit and betrayal, and everything is not what it seems. I wonder if part of that is Kimmel realizes that they said whatever they had to say because they were desperate to get him back on the air. It was a suspension, not a cancellation. And so there's no trust there. There's a lot of distrust there. And I'm getting a confirmation, Ace of Pentacles. There's a lot of distrust. How is Jimmy Kimmel going to handle this now? What will we see from him in terms of how he presents his material? Oh, Two of Wands. So watch for his guests. Now I saw somebody said he was going to have several people on social media I saw yesterday said he was going to have Gavin Newsom on tonight when he comes back on. I don't know, but maybe I'm taping this in the morning. Maybe by the time it airs this afternoon, that will have come out. But that Two of Wands feels like he's focused forward. Kimmel is with fire. He's ready to amp it up and say, and what are you going to do about it? You know, not in a angry or contentious way. That network is still his. You know, that's who he works for, but in a way that says, I am going to be who I am, and I am going to exercise free speech. And we have the two. They call it the witch here. It's the high priestess now. Interesting in this energy is it is very often about what you don't see behind the scenes. So between that and that Seven of Swords, you all, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know. And I think Kimmel is saying, I'm not necessarily even going to show you all of my cards. It's not even in the Two of Pentacles. Exactly. What is this partnership going to look like? Right? We'll go forward with this partnership, but I'm not necessarily going to show you all of my cards either. I'm gonna sit back and think about some ways that I want to present my content and what he's ready to fight for and push for, and knowing that given the proof in the pudding of what happened with, if you pull his show, and they're not going to want that to happen again. He's got them between a rock and a hard place. At the same time, them pulling his show from local markets, etc., may impact his viewership as well. So he's walking that line, and there's still a lot that's unknown. But I can say without question, what I'm getting from the reading today, you all, is in terms of his intention, that Two of Wands moving forward, his intention is, I'm gonna bring it. I'm going to bring it, and I'm going to bring it better than ever. And watch very closely the guests that he has on his show, because perhaps they can say some things that it doesn't even have to come necessarily out of his mouth, right? All right, you all. I hope that was helpful. I think I'll check back in with you and try to stay on my schedule for tomorrow. We'll see. Look for me, and take really good care of yourselves. Remember, chin up. We got a lot of reasons to hold our chins up today. Shoulders back, all right? And keep breathing. Keep breathing. Stay right there in your power, all right? All right, I'll talk to you real soon. Bye.